Imagine someone displaying such unyielding willpower in a duel that after being shot twice, once in the lower chest and once in the thigh, and then being stabbed multiple times, he still fought and won the duel. That man is James Bowie. He won simply by rushing his opponent with his infamously large butcher knife that he always carried on him. Of course, eyewitnesses of this duel saw that and spread word about it. Thus started the rumor of the famous Bowie knife. James Bowie is someone that I'm pretty sure we all heard of at one point or another. Either it's based off the Bowie knife that we've all known, or his fight at the Alamo. Because of that, we all think we have a basic understanding of who he is, but because of this speech, I did more background research on him, and he's a pretty interesting person from what I found. He had a pretty cool young life until his end. So, because of that, on this speech, I'd like to give more insight as to who he was before he was well known, who he was as a young kid, how he grew up. For instance, he grew up in Kentucky, born in 1796 as the ninth child of a group of 10. His family moved around quite a bit until they finally settled and made a living off of plantation and slave trade. As stated in a short biography I read from the Sons of DeWitt Colony, a website, he was born on the frontier, which led to a unique set of skills him and his siblings learned. They learned to hunt, to fish, to tend to crops, and how to run a plantation. On top of that, they were all taught basic English and writing, but James Bowie and his older brother Resin were overachievers, so they also learned how to do Spanish and French, both reading and writing, pretty fluently too. And James Bowie being James Bowie, he had to push it one step further and become very skilled in both weapons, ranged and close range, anywhere from pistols to rifles to knives. Because of his frontier growing up, his frontier lifestyle, he became very close to his hobbies such as fishing and hunting, but he also had a few strange ones such as wild horse riding and even alligator riding at some times. Just to top off his young livelihood, at the age of 18, him and his brother Resin decided to join into the militia, the Louisiana militia in 1814. However, they both didn't get what they wanted as they joined a little too late and never got into real conflict. So when they got out, they both decided to pursue their lives and just go about business. They both started into a simple business selling lumber and later into slave trading. And that right there would be a kickstart into their business and more militia-oriented part of his life. The slave trading led him to meeting a friend, Jean Lafayette, and that friend right there had an underground system for slave trading, which let him and Bowie have a decent business until they both made a decent amount of money and Bowie and his siblings backed out from the slave trading business. After that, Bowie decided to do the infamous story. That's how the Bowie knife was created. He had the sandbar fight in Mississippi where the infamous story happened and the Bowie knife became a well-known item. After that, he later decided to pose as a wealthy man to get married to a woman. However, that didn't last very long as the woman soon succumbed to an illness, thus resulting in Bowie to be very alone and have a lot of free time, which resulted in him joining the militia. Him joining the militia ultimately led him to San Antonio. He was in a battle here and there, because of course the militia, but it ultimately led him to the Alamo. And we all know the Alamo. There was a group of soldiers, volunteers there, and they heard about the Mexican army coming. So they decided to stay there and hold their ground. Although they knew the war was coming, James Bowie became very ill at the time and still decided to stay. There's a story about how William Travis drew a line in the sand asking if anyone wanted to fight, they would cross that line right now. James Bowie, still being very sick and weak to walk on his own, he asked soldiers to carry him to the other side of the line as he did not want to back out from this fight. He wanted to stand his ground and stand for who he was. As we all know, James Bowie and his fellow 187 troops all died in that battle. It was a fitting end for someone like James Bowie, who had an awesome story as himself. In this speech, I decided to go over some of the background of James Bowie that you may not have known. I really hope that me doing this really showed some insight into who he was and shined some light on someone who we knew very little about, but now maybe know even more.